Border checks. When you hear this, the last thing you'll likely think of is the European Union. Because one of the most famous things about the EU is the free movement of people. The EU has no internal borders, which is not very common. And all of this starts with Schengen. But as famous as Schengen may be, some people have questions about the way it works or its efficiency. Like, how can you prevent and fight crime when you have no internal borders? Why are some EU member states not in Schengen? And if the internal borders are open, what about the external borders? What do they look like? Is there even a wall or something? They don't want you to know, but there is a giant ice wall actually. So how does that work? Let's take a look inside the files. What's the story of the Schengen Area? Who can join in? And how are we safe without borders? We'll tell you everything you need to know as we dive inside the files. Let's start with a very important question. Where is Schengen? As you're aware, behind almost every major step forward in the EU, there is a treaty, with important people gathering somewhere, Rome, Lisbon, Paris, Amsterdam, and signing a piece of paper that says we agree to this or that. So, it won't surprise you that the Schengen Agreement was signed in Schengen. But where is Schengen? Meet Schengen, a small and lovely town in southern Luxembourg with less than 1,000 inhabitants. Schengen is not home to any EU institutions like Brussels, Strasbourg, and Luxembourg City are, but it's located on the border between France, Germany, and Luxembourg. So it was chosen as a symbol for opening borders between countries. Even more symbolically, the treaty was signed on a boat on the River Moselle, where both Germany and Luxembourg have jurisdiction. Even though Schengen was an important step for the EU, they were not initially related. The Schengen Agreement of 1985 was simply a treaty between 5 countries, outside of the legal framework of the European Community. Alright, I need an old map to do this, you'll see why. The agreement was inspired by the collaboration between the countries of the Benelux, namely Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, who had already opened their borders with each other. But then, France and Germany, well, West Germany at the time, proposed to do something similar between themselves and the Benelux. And this is how the Schengen Agreement came to be. But initially, the agreement did not really open the borders. The countries only agreed to progressively abolish border controls. And then later on, they started by making these controls lighter and less frequent. And that's it. But there was a clear intention to one day get rid of them entirely. And one event pushed things ahead. Customs officers went on strike. Now, if they had just stopped working, like most people do when they go on strike, that would have not been very effective. Instead, they did the opposite. They stopped and thoroughly searched every single car trying to cross a border, which created massive traffic jams. The situation got so bad that people started to protest against it. In the end, no one was happy about the situation. So one thing was now clear: it was time to change things and deepen European integration. And the solution was straightforward: an area without internal borders. Which brings us to the next step: the signature of the Schengen Convention in 1990. Now this is what created the Schengen Area without internal borders that we know of. Around that time, the initial parties of the Schengen Agreement, with Germany now back in one piece, were joined by Spain, Portugal, and Italy. And since you can't snap your fingers and open all borders just like that, the convention only took effect in 1995. I mean, Berlin did open its borders overnight in 1989, but that's a bit of a stretch. All of this is thanks to a lot of cooperation across many different areas. There was just one small exception. For a while, France kept border controls with Belgium and Luxembourg, because the French feared that people would pass through these two countries to bring back certain goods from the Netherlands that were legal there but not elsewhere in Europe. This unusual situation only lasted for a couple of months in 1995. In the 3 decades that followed, many other countries that joined the EU also joined the Schengen area, with the exception of the UK, that was keen to keep border checks, and the Republic of Ireland, All of this shows that the Schengen area is quite flexible. It adapted to specific situations regarding borders in the member states and in third countries. I'm mentioning third countries as in countries outside of the EU because they can too join in to enjoy free movement. Like Norway, which joined the Schengen area in 2001 and Switzerland in 2008. And even Iceland and Liechtenstein joined Schengen. The European microstates, San Marino, Vatican City, Monaco and Andorra have a specific status. They're not part of the EU, nor Schengen, but they don't have borders with their neighboring countries, which are themselves in Schengen. So you can just go in and out of these microstates. Also, did you know that Schengen has a land border with Canada? Through a tiny island between Canada and Greenland, which is part of Schengen, through Denmark. But one of, if not the weirdest border in the world, lies inside Schengen. It's between Belgium and the Netherlands. In Baarle-Hertog, a small Belgian town located within the Netherlands that has pockets of the Netherlands inside of it. Does that make sense? Borders cross streets, roads, bars, and houses and are just limited to markings on the ground. That's peak Europe. Now that we covered some exceptions and special cases, let's see what this Schengen framework means exactly. Anyone, regardless of their nationality, can move between countries in the Schengen area without being controlled at the border. But that's not all. Crossing borders must be as seamless as possible. Any country who'd like to join Schengen must accept these rules. Another very neat thing is that the common Schengen visa policy allows anyone to stay up to 3 months as a tourist in any country within the Schengen area. So you only need one visa to tour a whole continent plus some beautiful islands and support our tourism industry. But being in the Schengen area doesn't mean you'll never be controlled. Security still matters, especially to fight cross-border crime. Schengen allows countries to temporarily, and under strict conditions, re-establish border controls, not borders, if necessary. Schengen also introduced widespread cooperation between police forces. And it's really important, because open borders could be a criminal's heaven, or rather... But in Schengen, they're not. For example, police officers from one country can cross the border of another if they are pursuing criminals. And intel about crime is shared very efficiently between countries through a database called the Schengen Information System. Cue the classic Hollywood movie trope. The criminal drives across the state line, looks in the rearview mirror, and loves because the cops have to stop chasing them. Well, that doesn't work here. But what about the outer borders? It's the responsibility of each member state to manage its part of the common external border. For example, you can certainly imagine that the physical shape of our common border with Russia and Belarus has changed quite significantly over the last couple of years. In some cases, it went from a few border posts to a more substantial fence with surveillance and barbed wire. And if you worry about illegal crossings of the Schengen borders, here are two things. Firstly, illegal crossings were down 26% in 2025, reaching the lowest level in many years. And secondly, they represent only a tiny fraction of the countless legal crossings every year. And I mean literally countless. In 2025, the Schengen area attracted more than 790 million travelers. Schengen states issued 10 million visas, and more than 60 countries enjoyed visa-free access to the Schengen area. I know, I just gave you numbers, so it's not technically countless, but go ahead, count these people, we'll see. And don't forget that for non-EU nationals, entering Schengen legally is not easy. Just check out what people are saying online.
Because why do my Indonesian friends have to compile a novel just to go to Europe? And my Turkish friends are writing letters to persuade governments just to let them visit for a week?
Going in and out, which documents are verified, how long you can stay, visas, etc. There are indeed a lot of rules regarding Schengen. But once you're in, traveling across countries is easier than anywhere else in the world. So it's worth it. So the Schengen area is not just about easy holidays. It's about countries working together to unite a whole continent with freedom, security, and justice. And I think that's pretty cool. So the next time you cross a border within Europe, think about how it all started on a boat in a little town in Luxembourg. That's it for this week's video. Links and all sources will be in the description as always. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week.